Um, it's incredibly unfortunate that this is a decision that has to be made tonight, because this is such a large conversation we're going to have, and one that, you know, many of us have tried to have. I've had this, gosh, I don't know how many budgets we've asked. It was before the current chief. It was under our previous, not a police chief, fire chief. And I remember I asked every EMS, I asked police, and I asked fire to cut, I think it was 1% of their budget. Can you find me 1% of your budget so we could give that to public health? And each department, all due respect, kind of offered a sacred cow, so to speak. One option was close Station 9, which we know that wasn't going to happen, or one of the stations that always gets offered to get closed, and it's never going to happen. It's the one in Hyde Park. That Hyde Park will never let that station close. And then every department offered, you know, something that they knew there was tremendous community support for, and it wouldn't happen. And so I have great respect for every colleague who has spoken out and said that this particular program is important. But that's why I just wish we weren't having to have this conversation. We weren't having to have this broader discussion, but it is, yeah, absolutely. Car theft, we need funding for it. But when we look at how does that fit into everything else in the budget? If this is a huge priority, why are we depending on grant funding? It's my understanding there's also a match of about 100 and please correct me if I'm wrong, staff. My note said there was a match of 173,000 of city dollars.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so it is grant money, but it also includes a match of $173,000 of city dollars. And we are just at this moment right now that we have to start making incredibly tough decisions, and whether this is symbolic in ways, you know, I've talked about how symbolism is important in our jobs. And so, you know, it's a broader discussion we have to have, where we start cutting, where the priorities are. I mean, this council added to APD's budget to reduce the rape kit backlog. So, you know, there's things that we need to talk about, but tonight I can't support passing this after hearing from the community and with the inability to look at have a broader discussion of where priorities are and what our options are, and just tonight I can't support $173,000 match. And you know, we've heard about hospital bills of people who were hurt at the protest. We've heard of you know, reallocation of ways, and anyway, I will not support this item.
Councilmember Flanagan.
I think just for context, we're talking about 0.1% of the police budget, 0.1%. And while it is a topic that a lot of people are frustrated about, it is not the only way that we can address that issue. And I can't remember if staff said this had to be adopted within the next 7 days or not. If it could be adopted in the next 8 days, then it could still be brought back as an emergency item. But for that notwithstanding, without more time to dig into the details about exactly how and to which elements of APD this money can go, I can't support it today.
Councilmember Kassar.
Mayor, I'm not going to be supporting this item either. I think that if it's a critical function, we can find a way to do it within our budget. And I think this sends an important message that we should be finding within our budget what we're going to do to make it up to people who were injured this last weekend, and what it is we're going to do to make up to people what it is that the community brought up systemically today. And so I'll be voting no.
I'm going to be voting yes on this. I'm going to vote yes because we have to, this is an important function of what we need law enforcement to do. It's not one of the areas that have been discussed or debated here tonight from a substantive area. Having money from a grant program means we have more money to be able to spend on social services or whatever else we want to spend money on, because this is grant funding. There are going to be some tough votes next week, some far-reaching votes next week. And I think it's really important when we take those votes next week that people will say that they were reasoned decisions that we took and were taken in the context of ensuring public safety in the best possible way, in an Austin way. And I think that being able to demonstrate that level of seriousness and deliberateness means we have to look at something like this and say that this is a way for us to both do something that is an important function with respect to theft of automobiles, but doing it in a way that maximizes the funding that we can spend in support of our community on the things that have our highest priority. Any further discussion? Councilmember Alter.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify with staff, because when I was just reading it, it seems to me that the match is not like a match that gets, like, if we believe that we have to deal with auto theft, this is just money that's already been allocated to auto theft that counts as our match. It's not that we're coming up with other money that could really, if we believe that auto theft is an area we need to be paying attention to, that would be reallocated. If we didn't accept the grant money, we would be losing an opportunity, because we might say then we need to take another $430,000 and put it into auto theft. Am I correct in where the match is coming from?
Yes, ma'am. The match is $173,000 of existing city-funded salaries. So we have it. If you're looking at the budget, I think I'd only forwarded it to Councilmember Ellis's office. But if you're looking at the budget, there's a cash match category and then an in-kind, and both of those categories include existing city-funded positions that contribute towards auto theft as it is. So these positions are in addition to, and I should also point out that there are 3 detective positions. I think I'd mentioned it earlier, and it funds 80% of detective positions that the city would have to take up if not funded by auto theft, by the grant.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, Mayor, I absolutely agree that we're going to have some incredibly tough votes coming up, but and maybe I misunderstood what your reasoning was, and I respect everybody's reasoning, but to say that this money then would maybe come out of social services, I mean, I guess that's the whole problem, is that, I'm sorry if I misunderstood, but you know, when public health can't find money, they don't get to go into police to look for it. It's just been a continual discussion about a budget, a part of our budget that grows and grows and grows. And I agree that where we can leverage dollars, it's important to leverage those dollars, but there always seems to be, well, for only this much more in this budget, we can get this. And I just, anyway, maybe I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah. Because that's not what I said. Let's go to Councilmember Flanagan.
Can I just make sure I understood what staff said? They say that if we reject the grant, that there's a certain number of positions that are currently funded with similar dollars we would have to fund elsewhere. Is that what was said?
So right now with the auto theft grant, we have 3 detective positions that are funded the base salaries of which are funded at 80% by the Motor Vehicle Authority and 20% by the city's general fund budget. The city also already pays for those 3 officer positions benefits.
So it's 3 detectives.
Yes, sir.
Do you know, just off the top of your head, how many vacancies there are for detectives in that same class?
I don't.
This is Chief Manley. I can speak.
Yeah, go ahead, Chief.
Sure, I can speak to that. There shouldn't be any vacancies in the detective rank because we promote whenever those vacancies occur. The only time that there could be a vacancy is if we didn't have a current promotional list. So any vacancy that would be there would be one that was maybe created in the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks and we haven't promoted that person into it.
So generally in the department, there's over 100 vacancies right now. Is that correct?
More than that, yes, sir. And they're at the officer level.
So we're not going to lose these officers because we've already budgeted for more than 100 officers in the department that we haven't hired, that the recruiting team hasn't been able to recruit for, regardless of the cadet classes, because this has been a long-standing multi-year problem. Even when the council has authorized officers, the training and recruiting system has failed it. This is just my point again. It's 0.1% of the budget. On this day, in this moment, I cannot vote for it.
Councilmember Kitchen.
I want to say a few things because I'm not sure if I was clear on why I'm supporting it. And I respect everyone's opinion and approach. But from my perspective, these are existing 3 detectives for a much needed service, and Councilmember Renteria said that much better than I. And this is grant money that we're going after. So from my perspective, that stretches our dollars that we have available for other purposes. And I have been in the past and will continue to be and expect to take tough votes next week. And I have in the past looked for changes in the police budget, and I've been very proud of what we've done in the past. We need to accelerate it and do even more. And I am prepared to do that. But from my perspective, this is not turning down this level of grant funding for 3 detective positions in a function that is very important to our community is not something we should be doing.
Thank you. And that was just the point that I was trying to make earlier. Ready to take a vote? Those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. It is Councilmember Alter, Councilmember Kitchen, Councilmember Tovo, Councilmember Poole, Councilmember Ellis, and myself. Those opposed?
Councilmember Renteria.
I'm sorry, and Councilmember Renteria, sorry. That's 7, 4 voting against, Councilmember Garza, Flanagan, and Kassar. Councilmember Harper Madison, how are you voting? No. 7-4, this item passes. With that, council, it is 11:09.